Hello, I'm joined by David Del Rio, the star of the upcoming Matlock series, and I'm so happy to have the opportunity to chat with you today.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks so much for having me again. It's nice to talk to you again.
The pleasure is always mine, and to be able to speak to you about this really great series is just I just keep reiterating it's a pleasure and a privilege.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks so much. I'm so glad you're a fan. And yeah, I mean, I'm just as much a fan of this first episode in the series as a whole as well. I mean, being put in a suit every day, I have no complaints.
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of the behind the scenes content that our good friend Leah Lewis has shared through like her social media and of course the
Yeah.
Matlock social media. And I don't think you guys had any fun. This was just a serious show. No, nobody was laughing, no entertainment whatsoever, no
Uh,
shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean, I think Leah and I are really the comedic duo, both on and off the screen. And I mean, it comes from truly a place of gratefulness that we are actors working and actually working on a really fantastic show. And how could you not spread joy around the workplace when that's the case?
The cast is just like phenomenal. Obviously, like juggernauts of acting, titans of acting, like Kathy Bates and Beau Bridges. But you got yourself, of course, and Leah, like we talked about. But Sky and Yale and Jason, obviously too. Like it's hit, like hit like the entire ensemble itself.
It's
It's just.
ensemble. It's a real great ensemble to be with, and we are always just always concentrating to making sure we make the best story we can, and serving our quarterback Kathy, and making sure that we're all helping each other out, and that comes with a real close camaraderie and. Um, we're just, again, we're all just so psyched to even be part of this show and to work under such a great titan and legend and icon of the industry like Kathy and Bo.
Well, your character's name is Billy. He's kind of
Mm-hmm.
described as this charismatic, excuse me, younger associate. What initial breakdown, if you can remember, did you receive about your character, Billy, and kind of either what drew you to him or what did you really kind of connect with when you started reading about him?
I really appreciate you kind of wording it that way because a lot of people ask me like, "What drew you to the role?" And basically, my answer is like, "Well, I auditioned," and so that's what really drew me to the role. But I remember reading that Billy, Billy is a kid that just got out of law school and started dipping his feet into law because his family are he was raised by his three sisters and his mother and raised all by women. And, there's this correlation between that history of Billy and how he treats Maddie when she comes into the workforce. It That's not compared to everybody else who's been treating her that way. Already they feel like a sort of threat, or they don't feel very confident in her presence in the office. And Billy's the exact opposite. He's like, I've been raised by women, and I know exactly the strength that Maddie Matlock brings into the workplace. And so when I read it, I remember it's like, okay, it's set up as the guy who's going to help her out through the ranks. I know exactly about that. My both my grandmothers are still alive. However, I got to know my great grandmother until I was, until I was 15. And she really taught me how to be a gentleman, opening the doors and pulling out chairs, saying, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, all that stuff. And Billy sort of has that same chivalry to him that I really, really responded to. And, he's charismatic because Billy loves the law. He loves his job. He wants to help people. And that's where the charisma comes from more than just having the charismatic personality type. It has to come from somewhere. And it really just comes from the love of his work. And so connecting those dots and threads, that was something that I really responded to. That being said, as well, the dialogue was just so quick and fast. And the first scene that we get introduced to Billy, we have this amazing walk and talk that was like a 3 minute shot of Kathy and I just walking down the hallway, and I'm just giving her exposition of the case that we're doing. And I remember when I was doing my first audition, I was kind of like very serious and pointed and just kind of giving the information as I can. And then Kat Coiro, the director, with Jenny, our showrunner, she said, "Well, you got to remember, he really enjoys this. Like, it's almost like he loves those murder, true crime podcasts, and he listens to it all the time. And he tries to solve it, and he really solves it with a different type of brain than everybody else." And man, once I got that, I was like, okay, now I understand. And what I thought was going to be one, producer session and then not hear anything, or whatever, it was a producer session. Next day, gratefully, I got the part.
I was gonna say, you're talking about this like, exposition and like monologuing.
Hmm.
That takes a certain amount of rhythm to it as well. And again, you're talking about walking and talking and doing these things with like Kathy Bates. How did you kind of, I guess, develop that rapport, develop that rhythm together then during moments like that?
When you have dialogue like Jenny Erman's dialogue, it kind of just speaks for itself, because Jenny, wrote a lot of times for Gilmore Girls, and that was were like 90, those were like 90-page scripts for a 40-minute episode, I believe. And so, she's already in that world. And I'm also a big fan of like Aaron Sorkin's The West Wing. So put me in a suit and a walk and talk, and I'm like in heaven. So these are things that I kind of always wanted to do. So I kind of, from being a fan for those type of shows, with my wife introducing me to Gilmore Girls, me introducing her to West Wing and binging. Uh, um, when you read the script as an actor, you kind of try to figure out other influences of things that you're a fan of and really try to implement that. But here's the other thing, we're just there sometimes to just get those lines out and get those lines right to the T. We get reminded a lot about pace. And when we get reminded about pace, then we're back in it. So we have the guidance of Jenny and her writers and the directors that come by that really remind us pace, 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 pace. And we're like, yes, thank you for the reminder. And then we're really, really back in it. But it all comes from trying to be as prepared as possible so you can just forget about the words and really, really commit to the speed.
I mean, along with this legal aspect of things, the series really kind of does this great balance of splicing and humor. Sorry for the the background, but yeah, it does a great job of really balancing these slices of like humor and heart, and then of course obviously the overall arcing of everything that's necessary, to focus on as well. Um, I just love that a series that can kind of encompass all these different, like I said, these beats, these different types of rhythm to it, that when you're watching it, you feel so immersed that you're like, did Harry ever just go? Because I'm here trying to solve this case too, or like, oh, this character's over here doing this. What's happening? Forward, forward, forward. Like you're always thinking when you're watching.
The duality of two stories that are happening in the same time, these episodes, is something that I am gobsmacked about what Jenny created. The sort of duality of a procedural lawyer show with a character driven mystery meshed together. And in that sort of meal, there are the ingredients of heart and comedy and drama are all just expertly spread out in a beautiful plate. And I'm really, really excited for the audience to fall in love with these characters, relate to these characters, and also relate and see either themselves or someone they know through the cases and the clients that we represent. Because really, at the end of the day, I think that Matlock is the story of America. It's just got so much visibility. It's got so much diversity. And we have a 75-year-old woman as our lead. And so there are a lot of things that are sprinkled on to this lawyer procedural structure that Jenny enhances with her writers. And I just can't believe how lucky I get to be part of that.
Well, coming up shortly, we're going to have the first episode of Matlock. And no, we're not teasing anything, we're not spoiling anything, but
Sure.
can you talk a little bit about kind of then how this first episode really, I guess, sets the tone and sets everything up, whether it's, different storylines that we're going to have interweaving or what the actual, inter-character office dynamics might be as well.
I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying, where the sort of structure of a legal procedural mixed with a sort of character driven mystery that's meshed together. It kind of sets up for the rest of the season, and you are not just seeing what's going on in these characters' personal lives, but you see something being investigated along with the work that us lawyers have to do in our investigation for the case. There's a lot of investigation of self. There's a lot of investigation of other answers beyond what the other characters know. Maddie's got a mission, and we follow her through that mission. And the duality of those stories is what really, really keeps this fresh. And one absolutely begets the other without the characters really knowing, which I think is just absolutely fantastic, because every step that Maddie makes in that office creates a ripple effect of what happens to the rest of the characters, whether the characters know it or not. So sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's incredibly obvious, but the fact that the audience is going to be let in is something that I think they're going to be really attracted to. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, yeah. I I would love a little bit more to kind of dive into the inter-character dynamics. Obviously, your character is a younger associate, and Leah's character
Yeah.
is a younger associate. How
Yeah.
does how do they mesh together, and how does their dynamic also play into the more seasoned attorneys like Jason's character, and Sky, of course, as well.
It's a good comedy bit with Leah and myself, with Sarah Franklin and Billy Martinez trying to make it up in the world. They both want to rise to the occasion and rise to a better position than being a junior associate, but they both have two extremely different ways of getting there, and opposites attract. And so when you have two opposite characters who also happen to be really, really good friends, and here's the other thing, what's funny is that Sarah's just concentrating on trying to be at the top and trying to be at the top as fast as she can. Billy just wants to be friends. He kind of wants to lead with his heart. And Sarah realizes that, when you lead with your heart, you get better work out of it. But she really is such a bullet focused character. And so you have two sort of different worlds that, when you have Sky and Jason's character, there's senior lawyers and bosses of their own field there, but they still have things that they want to aspire to. So their aspirations with junior associates like Billy and Sarah's aspirations are completely different, but at the same time, it's the same when you think about that they're all trying to just want something in their life. And, with Billy and Sarah, they're boots on the ground. Anytime that they're investigating any of these cases, they're along with Maddie, along with Kathy, they're really boots on the ground collecting evidence, figuring stuff out so then they can turn in their work to Olympia, played by Sky P. Marshall. So then Sky could have the opportunity to go in court and present to the judge and everything. And, everybody brings their A game on the show, and then you have someone as iconic as Kathy who speaks volumes by saying really nothing. The dynamics sort of continue to fluctuate, grow, dissipate, and then grow again. And I think I hope that the audience just continues to be committed to the ride because like in life, relationships grow, relationships fluctuate, and I think that this is such a great interpretation of what America really is like now in 2024.
Having watched the trailer for the series, and then of course there's a moment where she Kathy's character introduces herself, Maddie Matlock. She's like, yeah, like the old school character, like the tip to the old school character, but she also has that same kind of presence as the older as the original, I'll call it, version
Or
of Matlock. The We talk about your character being charismatic, but like that's another character who uses their um charm or their charisma to kind of disarm people at the same time too, or be like she really blends in places because again she's a 75-year-old woman,
yeah,
and people aren't really paying attention to that. Everybody now, like you're talking about in 2024, we're on the go, we're looking at social media all the time,
right, right.
FaceTiming someone, or doing this, that, like all these things that generation just was never a part of, obviously, because we didn't have it then, or they didn't have it then.
Yeah, and I also got to think about like my generation too, like when I was in college, like we were, and I'm kind of glad that we're kind of out of that, hopefully. But like we were kind of just like the stay up late, work till 5 a.m. And when I was a younger like maybe 2014, like whatever, like the Wolf of Wall Street came out, I was surrounded by a generation that just wanted to make their money and party and all that stuff. And I mean, what do they call it? Something like the I forgot the term. I'm aging myself here, but it's almost kind of like the hustle generation, almost. You know what I mean? Where everyone was just really concentrating on the hustle, and that was something that's really brought into this show as well. And as Kathy's character would say, you can barely see us coming. And there's something to that. That's sort of almost the younger generation that we kind of forget to adapt. Is sometimes silence and quietness is golden and it can bring you farther. But she's surrounded by a very very loud environment. So it's really nice to make a comment about that, and I'm glad to be a puppet to that story to kind of help that narrative move along, because I think that people really need to understand and take from generations before them how they survived and how they made it through, and really get into a mindset of being a student as opposed to what we used to be. It was like we just thought we all had it figured out. And there's a lot of that commenting in our show too. So yeah, I mean, it covers a lot. It covers a lot.
Well, just to kind of wrap things up, or at least kind of focus on as we get here now. We're like a week or so away from the series premiere. What do you hope fans take away or viewers take away from watching weekly, or at least, I guess, maybe from the series overall, getting to watch this season?
I guess the same reaction that I had when I was watching some of these episodes. I had the pleasure to watch a few episodes after the pilot, and to be really enthralled and glued to the TV of so much investigation that's going on by putting the puzzle pieces together. And then at the end of every episode, going, oh my God, that's what I'm hoping. Because that's what happens. That's just kind of what happens. Every single episode, there will be an absolute surprise.
Wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to getting to watch weekly, getting to see all the steps develop, the rhythms, the beats, these characters colliding and getting that mind-blowing moment episode by episode.
Yeah, yeah, and you will. I mean, if and when we're in the table read as well, it's kind of like you hear just this audible gasp, and in every at the end of every table read, and so I think that's what I'm hoping that the audience gets from it, and then I also think that I hope they just have fun watching it. It really is just a fun show to follow, and she would didn't want me to say this, but I'll say it anyway. Kathy Bates is the best. So, she's, people are going to, people who haven't watched her before and are being introduced to her, they're just going to have such a really, really great time and really fall in love with her. So I'm excited. So, for more reasons than one for the show to come out.